Welcome back. We're talking about understanding the buyer and really getting inside the head of our prospect. And in this video, we're going to be talking about what information that we need to collect in order to effectively sell to them and get them to purchase our product or our offer. Now, there's a rule in sales that basically says, hey, he who talks less on a sales call wins or is going to be able to close the deal. And that's because whoever talks less is getting more information. And we get information by asking questions. So if we're talking, we're giving up lots of information. If we're listening on sales calls and asking questions, which gets the other person to talk, we're getting the information that we need, and then we're going to be able to close them more effectively. Because the more information that we have about our prospect, the easier it is to close them, because then we can use that information to help them realize that we can help them, and we know what their objections are, we know what they're going to say, and we know how we can persuade them accordingly. So information about our prospect is very important, and as much information as we can get about them, the better. Now, not all information is useful. In fact, a lot of information might be good information to know about them, but you may never use it in the sales call. But there is types of information that you will absolutely need in a sales conversation. And so I want to focus on figuring out and showing you exactly what information that we need, the type of information that we need to gather, and how we go about gathering that. So in this video, first and foremost, I'm going to show you the two different categories of information that we can gather from, and then the different types of information that we need to gather in order to be able to sell correctly. And then last but not least, we're going to be going over just a script, a little survey questionnaire script that I've prepared for you. This is a PDF available down below this video. And I'm going to read through some of the questions here and show you how this ties into the type of information that we need. And you can literally just copy and paste this and run ask campaigns or use this on your sales calls if you need that. This information will really help you there, okay? So that's kind of the agenda of what we're going to be going over. So let's dive in. Okay, so when it comes to selling to people, a common mistake that people do is they wait till the sales call to start collecting information about their prospect. And really, there's two categories or types of information that we can get or collect about our prospect. There's one of them that is generalized information. Oops, I spelled that wrong. Let me try that again. Generalized info about our customer base as a whole. All right, and let me write this on here. This is our customer base. Customer base. So this is non-specific information about our customers as a whole. So this is not like, hey, I know that prospect A has this objection. Instead, this would be things like, hey, I know that my customer base as a whole typically wants to learn about this. They typically have this objection. These are common, desires, pain points, objections that they have. The second type is going to be personalized info. And this is going to be customer specific. All right, so this is going to be specific information about a specific process or a prospect that you're selling to. Now, what most people will do is they will wait until they get on the actual sales call with their prospect to start learning about information about them. Now, occasionally, people will run applications, and I do all my sales are application-based selling, which we'll talk about. And so they'll start collecting information about them when they fill out the application, and then when they get on the call, they'll get the rest of the information from them. But they miss out on a huge opportunity to learn a lot about their customer base and their customer in general before they actually even ever get on the call with them. And what figuring out this information allows you to do, this information over here, allows you to be better prepared and equipped for the actual sales call so that you can kind of predict and assume what objections are going to be coming, what you need to focus on, where the sales conversation needs to kind of go, the points that you need to cover on your sales call, and things of that nature. And so I like to make sure that we're getting both of this information. This more personalized information is going to come primarily from two places. One, like I said, applications, and two, this is going to come from the actual sales call and the questions that you ask on there. This information, however, this more generalized information, is going to come through ask campaigns, surveys, going to events, networking, talking to prospects, things of that nature, okay? It's a much more generalized scenario or a much more generalized information collection method, okay? And so I'm going to dive into a couple ways that we can go about doing this, but what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start collecting information and learning all about your prospect before they ever get on the call and before you're ever having a sales conversation with them. So going to where they're hanging out, getting in their Facebook groups, going to the events that they're going to be, attending, reading the magazines and the subscriptions, getting on the email list, reading the books that your potential customer is reading and consuming and being at, so that you can start to learn how to think like them, and you can see in the comment section and see when they're talking about things what their pain points actually are. And we'll talk about the information that needs to be collected here in just a second, but to start to learn about them so that you can form a hypothesis and say, okay, I know that as a general rule, when I talk about or talk with my prospects online or in person, the things that I hear them talk about are XYZ PDQ, right? Like this is that type of information. So that you know on the sales call, I have a rough idea that their desire is blank and that their pain is blank and that their objections are blank. And that way you can start to form your assets and your, practice your objection handlers and things like that before you ever get on the call. And then the second one, obviously, once you get on the call, you'll get that personalized information, and we'll talk about that when we do the sales script and actually the call structure, okay? So we want to get information from both of these things so that we can be best prepared to actually be on the sales call. Now, once we understand this, the question becomes, okay, well, what information do I want to focus on getting? Because obviously there's pretty much an unlimited amount of questions that you could ask your prospect, but which ones of them are actually important? And so if we look back at sales psychology, there are a few questions that if we get the answers to these questions, that basically everything else revolves around these things. And so I've made a list of, there's 6 of them, that when asking questions, when running surveys and questionnaires, and when you're on the sales call with your prospect, these are the things that you're going to want to focus on getting first. And then after you have these 6 questions answered, then you can worry about other information in the process of things. And when I give you my sales scripts and when we talk about the actual sales method, you'll realize that the scripts and what we're talking about all have these specific things in them. All right? So the first thing that we're going to want to learn about our customer, all right, that we absolutely need to know, and the information that we need to collect, is we need to know what their pain is. Okay? What is it that is causing them pain right now? Now, this goes back to the most basic form of sales psychology and just decision making, which was that all humans like to do 2 things. 1, we move away from pain, and 2, we move towards pleasure. Okay? So if we look at that and we know that pain is the single greatest driving factor in making decisions, we want to know what it is that's causing them pain right now. The second thing that we need to learn about and know about them is we need to know what their desire is. Okay? What are their desires? What is it that they're ultimately after? This also goes back to basic human psychology and decision making, which we just talked about, which is, hey, if they're moving away from pain, they're moving towards pleasure, or they're moving towards a desire. If I can have those 2 things, those are the single-handedly the most important things in all of sales, in all of decision making, and I need to know that information really before I know anything else. I want to know what it is that they're trying to move away from and what it is that they're trying to move towards. Now, when you're selling a product, typically speaking, you're probably going to know, if you know anything about your product or offer at all, what it is that you're selling. So if you're selling Facebook ads and lead generation services, you should have a pretty good idea that the desire that they're after is more leads, right? But there's also a reason beyond that, which is, hey, okay, look, the reason they want more leads is what? What will more leads do for their life, for their business, for whatever it is that, that they're doing? Why do they want those leads? Why do they want to scale their business? Okay? So if we can look at not only what the desire is from a, hey, I want this product to get this result, but also I want that result for this specific reason, that's going to give us a better understanding of their desires or the pleasure that they're after. Okay, so I want to know their pain and I want to know their desire. The same thing is true with pain is, yes, they might say my pain is lack of leads, but you want to dive down even further in that and kind of understand, okay, what is lack of leads causing? Is that causing stress in their family life? Is it causing stress for investors? Is it causing stress because they don't, it's more of an identity thing? So diving down really deep on both of these to understand what the actual driving pain is and what the actual driving desire is really, really important, okay? Number 3, we want to know the driving factor for change. Okay? What is the driving factor behind them wanting to move forward today or right now? Because chances are that this thing that they're dealing with did not just come up or just happen. And so, maybe it did, and maybe that is the ultimate driving reason for change, but there's a driving factor behind why it is that they want to move forward, and it could be, hey, I need this solved so that I have time to go focus on other things over here. I need this solved because I can't move on to my next project until I get this one done. I need this solved because insert reason here. There needs to be, or you need to identify what the driving factor is behind them wanting to change. And it could be as simple as my wife wants it done, my kid wants it done, whatever that thing is, so that you can use that to kind of push them over the edge and get them off the fence to move forward, and use that as a sales leverage mechanism to get them to decide to move forward as well. Okay? So know their pain, know their desire, and then understand the driving factor that is like behind this change and causing this pain, or causing this change in their life. Number 4. Number 4, we need to know their awareness level. Okay? We need to know what phase of awareness that they are in so that we can then meet them where they're at in this. And we'll talk about the 4 phases of awareness, which are, and there's a whole video on this, but problem unaware, they don't realize that they have a problem, or they do realize that they have a problem, but they don't know a solution. They know they have a problem, they know of a solution, but they don't know of a product that could help them solve that solution. And then they know that there's a problem, they know a solution, and they know a product that can help them solve that solution. So we need to know what phase of awareness they have to their problem. And like I said, there's an entire video on that that'll dive into that further of exactly what those things are. But we need to know this because we're going to treat them differently based on how much information they have about their own problem. Sometimes if they're super aware of the problem, they're super aware of the solution, and they just need a product, and we have it, it takes 10 seconds to convince them to close and move forward. We're obviously going to start and ask for the sale way earlier in the conversation than we would someone that's not aware of a solution or a product at all. That make sense? So getting really clear on the awareness level that they have, and like I said, watch the video on the 4 phases of awareness that will help with that. Number 5. Number 5 is an interesting one because it is all about perception. Okay, so we want to know the value of solving their problem or of the solution to them. Meaning, what is it worth to them to get the problem that they're facing, the pain that they're experiencing, solved? What is it worth to them to achieve desire, whatever desire it is that they're after? If we can get a value from them of how much that would be worth, then we have a huge leverage point because now we know how much that is worth to them in their mind. So if I say, hey, how much is a predictable way to get leads through your door worth? And they say to me, well, that's worth about $3,000, and I'm selling a $5,000 program, well, then I know that I need to really work on convincing them and showing them that the value of this is more than $3,000. It's well above $5,000 and that you're charging $5,000 for it. But if they say, man, a predictable way to get leads through the door, I'd pay $25,000 for that. That's the value of it, and you're selling a $5,000 offer. Now you know you're in a good ballpark range to say, okay, they've told me, they've actually verbally stated to me that this is worth $25,000 to them. I know I'm sitting good to be able to pitch this at $5,000 because they've already told me this. So getting an actual verbal confirmation of a value is very important, and we call this a value anchor, which we'll talk about in the sales process. But when we have this value anchor, when it comes to handling objections, and one of the objections is price, you can now point back to this and say, well, you told me that the value of this was this amount. I'm only charging you this amount. So what's the issue? Let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, so getting an actual verbal confirmation, or if you're collecting it about your customer as a whole, as a generalized group, getting written feedback back from them to say, okay, they tell me that this is how much it's worth to them. That way I can price my offer accordingly. Okay? All right. And then last but not least, number 6, we want to know why they can't do it themselves. If we can do it, chances are that with a little bit of training or a little bit of work, they can go and potentially do it themselves. Now, that's not always the case, but at the end of the day, like, we want to know why it is that they're hiring someone else instead of hiring or doing it themselves. Because let's say running Facebook ads, for example. If you show them, hey, I can run Facebook ads for you, one of the common objections would be, well, I can just do this in-house. I can just do this myself, right? But if you can, before you get to that objection, before you get to the price, before you're talking about and handling these objections, you can set another anchor point of why you can't do it themselves or why they're interested in hiring someone. Now you can point back to that. But if we don't understand why it is that they're hiring someone else, then we're not going to be able to point back to that and be able to handle that objection. Typically speaking, the reason of why they can't do it themselves falls into the category of like a timing thing. They want to go faster. 2, they don't know how, and they want to follow a proven formula so that they can go and do it. Or 3, a pricing thing of like, hey, it's just cheaper to actually hire someone else because doing it themselves would potentially have a lot of loss and messing up and cost them lots of money in that aspect of things. So why they can't do it themselves is a big reason to understand. And if we can get that information, this is going to help us go and handle the objections in the future. Okay? These are the 6 things that we really want to focus down on learning on both the sales call and when we are collecting information from our prospects or our potential prospects customer base as a whole. And so when we get on the sales call, like I said, on the sales script, you'll notice each one of these points, these 6 points, are in the sales script that I'm going to provide for you. Each one of these 6 points is covered in this prospecting survey that is attached below this video. Okay? Because when you do this, no matter what objection comes up, now I can point back to one of these 6 things and go, but you told me blank, so therefore, let's move forward. So, questions to ask. I'm going to just read you this. I'm not going to put it up on the board because there's a lot of writing there, but you can read through this and get a better understanding of what it is that you need to ask here. So what I like to do, obviously on sales calls, I'm asking these questions one-on-one. But if I want to collect information about my prospect, and I want to do it on a group basis, like from an overall level before they get on the call, I like doing things like ask campaigns, running out surveys to my audience on social media. You can even go and let's say you don't have an audience right now and you're like, man, I don't know who my customers are. I don't know anybody to ask. You can go and buy like solo ads or even pay for some Facebook ads or go to somebody else that has an audience and ask to run an ask campaign, which is just literally just a survey out to them, a campaign asking for information in exchange for value, running surveys or anything like that. The other way to do it would be to actually DM people and talk to people one-on-one and not pitch them. Just get on calls with them or have conversations in the direct messages to better understand and learn about your customer and start to ask them these questions in exchange for some form of value that you're going to give them in return. Okay? So questions would be, are they interested in the benefit your product or offer brings? So a question like this would be, hey, and let's just say you sell Facebook ads for lead generation for local businesses. You would ask a local business owner, hey, are you interested in getting, the benefit of your Facebook ads is unlimited leads, right? Are you, or X number of leads, are you interested in getting 30 qualified leads to your business per month? Next question would be like, where are they typically at in their prospects or in the journey? And this would be the 4 phases of awareness, their awareness level. So you could ask them, hey, I know you said that you have this problem, right? And they're going to say yes. So we already know that they're not in phase 1. What do you know about solving that problem? What things have you gone out and looked for to try to solve that? And so asking those questions starts to allow them to tell you, hey, this is how much I know about the solution. This is how much I know about the products that are available. And you start to learn a little bit more about where they're at. Why do they want this benefit? Pretty simple. What desire are they going towards? What's their goal with the benefit? Once again, desire. What pain are they currently experiencing that this benefit would help solve? This is what pain are they moving away from? What's standing in their way of achieving this benefit? What big frustration do they have when it comes to trying to solve this and achieve this benefit? So these would both be things related to why they can't do it themselves, and learning more about that. What is this benefit worth to them in a dollar amount? You just straight up ask them, hey, what would X, whatever it is that you're offering, be worth to you if you could achieve that? And they'll give you a dollar amount back from that. And then what tools are they currently using, or are you currently using, / have you tried using to get the benefit that you're after? And this would be a why they can't do it themselves solution. Okay. Like I said, that PDF is available down below this training. And so you can go through that. Like I said, copy, paste it, do whatever you need to do to get this information. But start collecting information on your Start collecting information on your prospects and on your potential buyers as a whole to learn about them, so that when you start to craft your sales message and get on calls with them, you know what to expect. And then once you're actually on the call with them, start asking them questions that are going to give you the answer to this information. All right? All right, if you have any questions on this, let us know, and I will see you in the next lesson.